want to talk a little bit about why I think it's very important for professional wrestling to return to cities like it was in the 70s and the 80s. There is not going to be a time, there's still people to this day that talk about Jackie Fargo and the matches he had. There's still people today in Alabama that talk about Bullet Bob Armstrong and the feud with the Tennessee stud Ron Fuller. There's still people to this day that talk about it. But is there going to be, because it's not in that one city, it's not in that one place where they talked about it. The people in Dothan, Alabama didn't talk what happened in Birmingham, Alabama. They talked about what happened in Dothan, Alabama. And when you go and talk to people in Dothan, Alabama, or you talk to people in Chattanooga, they tell you stories about Tojo Yamamoto in Chattanooga. They tell you stories about Jackie Fargo. They even tell you stories about George Goulas. No matter what you might think about him, probably people are going to remember George Goulas before they'll ever remember the wrestlers of today because they're not getting the following. If you think about the territory days and you look back at the territory days, I would imagine 4 to 5 million people a week paid a ticket throughout all the territories to watch professional wrestling. That's a lot of people. And now that's not who watched the TV show. There were probably 15 to 20 million people who watched the television programs that never even went to the wrestling shows. If that doesn't come back, and you do not have a wrestling organization and a wrestling company that runs Chattanooga, Tennessee on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be weekly. It can be monthly. Or Birmingham, Alabama, it doesn't have to be weekly, but monthly. And bring back professional wrestling, because if it keeps on going the route it's going, there's not going to be no semblance of what wrestling was. And we talk about Raw. There's some good wrestlers. It's not that they couldn't do it, but for some reason the management don't know what wrestling is. They have no clue what wrestling is. And it did well because people would react to those people. They were a part of the fabric of these towns. And I truly believe that wrestling's got to return to Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's got to return to Birmingham, Alabama. It's got to return back to these cities, because I'm telling you, if wrestling keeps on going, us old folks are not even going to recognize we're not even going to recognize wrestling. It's going to be nothing like that we remember it being. And I'm going to be honest with you. I remember wrestling too in Superstar. And I remember that when they were ready to come out, I remember that feeling. I remember when Dusty Rhodes was going against Ole Anderson. I remember when Jackie Fargo was going to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And the thoughts that I said, man, it's going to be good tonight. Same thing when Ron Fuller would come to Birmingham or go, you always know something's going to happen tonight. Ron Fuller's here tonight. Something's going to happen. It's got to go back to that. Rodney, your thoughts on wrestling needs to come back. Professional wrestling, not sports entertainment, professional wrestling.
Well, you're just preaching to the choir here, my friend, because I've said the same thing. The key, and even their house shows, no matter who you have, no matter what organization, they treat them like it's totally different. Totally different. You never see any footage to it. Nothing happens in them. And that has to change. You think about what was the number one thing? Remember 1989, I think it was. What was the thing? We decided that every event must mean something. Wasn't that one of the we started making criteria, which got heat with everybody. I mean, we were saying we just don't understand. And this was something that I was saying 30 years ago. Every single event must have a point. You must have a goal, and you must set out to do it. That's number one. Every match must have a point. It has to have a goal. It has to have a desired result, not just for the sake of having a match, but you must come to a conclusion that you've reached some kind of a success in that match. Make a point of it. Every match, every event means something. All right. We forgot, or wrestling forgot about that a long time ago. They just had the matches for the sake of having matches. No point, no reason, no goal set. Every single match, like we were saying, had to have a goal, every single event had to have some purpose. And if you don't have a purpose in a match and you don't reach that purpose, you've wasted your time and the fans' time. That's my opinion.
Jack,
But you're absolutely right about the weekly events, because then if you're having to go there more, you're going to have to give the people more. If you went and paid, I understand some of these tickets are $300.
yeah, I could pay
Do
that.
you get $300 worth of entertainment? Do you get $300 worth of an experience? Would you pay it again the next week? I would say no. Jack, go ahead. Throw it to
Well,
Jack.
we have discussed this before about Georgia Championship Wrestling, and what its ultimate downfall was when they started expanding beyond their fan base, and they lost that personal touch that they had in Augusta, and that they had in Macon, and they had in Columbus, and that they had in Atlanta.
Right.
Ohio and other places became more important to them than being that mom and pop wrestling company that made them what they were. Now, there's nothing wrong with progress, but it's not for everybody to be billionaires. You know, if you've got a great product, concentrate on keeping it great. You know, growth is fine, but you know, once you forget the people who made you what you are, then you're screwing everything up. You know, you're being disrespectful, and that's what they were. They were disrespectful to their fan base, and that's what wrestling in general has become. They're disrespectful to the fan base. They've forgotten us. They don't care about today's product. Doesn't care about us. We're not in their demographic anymore,
Yeah.
and that's sad. Is that some of the programs like AEW's Friday night show? Actually, their main demographic is age 62. That's me. That means there's a lot of old guys with cigars sitting at home watching that Friday night show that the young people aren't watching anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't touch base, and I think the best shows I have seen from AEW as far as crowd response has been when they were at Daly's place there in Florida for a year and a half. You know, sure, COVID made them stay there, but they, for a while, were the hometown team. And they packed that place out. They got tremendous response, and they did well. But once they started touring again,
Right.
you know, they're doing good, but are they going to keep it up? That's the problem. WWE's not keeping it up.
No.
They're not. They're having to cancel shows. They're going to Atlanta. Was it January 1st? They're in Atlanta, and they were scheduled several months ago and had to cancel it because of poor ticket sales.
So, you know, we think
I think Jack's hit again. Once again, Jack was right. But Georgia wasn't the only one who took and neglected.
Yeah.
Continental did the exact same thing when they went to Knoxville. They act like the rest of the area didn't even exist. They gave up on it. Well, we could just make money in Knoxville. Thing about it is you can make money in Knoxville, Birmingham, Dothan, and the rest of the places too, if you put the same energy you did in Knoxville in the rest of the towns. All right.
They started running Birmingham like it was a spot show, and they was never going back to it.
Exactly right. And then let's look at what the Crockett's did. They had a great territory, and they left it. I think we talked about it last week, Thanksgiving night, Starrcade. They moved Starrcade from Greensboro to Chicago, I think it was. That was a disaster. Why would you take a tradition that's been in Greensboro Thanksgiving night for years and move it away from there? Thinking that you're going to do bigger business in Chicago? No, you didn't do any bigger business in Chicago. What you did is you alienated your fans in Greensboro that's been supporting for year after year after year in the hopes of getting fans in Chicago, and it didn't work out for you, did it?
Well, I want to tell all the insiders that are watching this right now, coming in 2022, we're going to let you know how you can help bring wrestling back to the cities. So stay tuned. 2022, probably February 2022, you can help make it possible.